Hello, my name is John Spooner. I'm a solution engineer at Surfly, and I'm going to do a quick overview of our audit log feature. I do live next to a park, so if you can hear children playing, I do apologize. In this video, I'm going to cover what exactly audit logs are, where and how we can store them, and exactly what it is that audit logs capture within a Surfly session. If you're looking for particular information I maybe haven't covered here, you can visit help.surfly.com for general information about the solution. For technical documentation, you can go to docs.surfly.com. And of course, please feel free to reach out to sales@surfly.com, where we will be glad to answer your questions. So what are audit logs? In summary, audit logs are JSON data files that we send directly to you immediately following the end of a Surfly session to a location of your choice. The data file contains all recorded events in the session and information pertaining to each one of those events individually. What you do with the file from here is very much up to you. It can be stored to meet compliance obligations. It can be passed into your data warehouse. It can be fed into analytical tooling and visualized perhaps, or whatever use you can find for robust information on the activity within your Surfly session. I'll expand on the structure of the audit log file and explain what I mean by session event in a moment. But first, I want to cover how and where we can store audit logs. So what options do you have when it comes to storing them? There's two main ones. We can store audit logs in an Amazon S3 bucket of your choice, and we can also send them to you over a webhook. It's important to note that the Surfly will not store the audit logs ourselves. We send them directly to you, and no copy is stored or otherwise retained by Surfly at all. If you have used element masking, for example, which is a feature we have to hide certain page elements from view, any of these elements that have been hidden from view will also be redacted from the audit logs. So to expand a little more on the two options we have, if you opt for S3 storage, all you have to do is a very easy configuration. You just have to add your bucket credentials to the Surfly dashboard, and then the audit logs after a session will be automatically sent to that S3 bucket. We're not limited to Amazon S3 buckets. You can use any cloud bucket, providing it meets S3 compliance. For webhooks, you can of course send the file anywhere. And when it comes to setting up these webhooks, you can do it in the Surfly front end, so on the dashboard, or you can use our REST API to set them up from there. And as I said a moment ago, what you do from here is very much up to you. So we know where to store them, but what exactly do audit logs capture? I think it's best to answer that question by looking at a real example of browsing. So I have a quick recording here of a browsing session I did recently of bol.com, which for anyone who doesn't know is a Dutch e-commerce site. I won't watch the whole thing, but all I'm doing essentially is I'm clicking through the website, I'm loading new pages, I'm interacting with elements. So I click through a few different pages, looking at chairs, I think, and then I, at the end, load my shopping basket. So it's a very simple session, but let's take a look at what exactly the audit logs produce for something like this. So what does the file look like? The basic structure of the audit log is the file will always contain a client key, and then alongside that will be the session logs themselves. These session logs, once expanded, you can see they are numbered. So they range from 0. This is always the session created event, which we'll take a look at in a moment. And they range all the way up, depending on how long the session is. There can be a great number of session events recording everything that happened in the Surfly session. So what do I mean by session event? Well, there's 4 main types of session events, and within them, we can get an idea of what's being recorded. So to begin with, we have session or participation events. These include things such as people joining the session, people leaving, invites being sent, session starting, session ending, etc. Then we have control switching. In a Surfly session, of course, one participant is always in control, and then any actions and subsequent events that you can see, were taken by this person. So if somebody is always driving, control switching events allow you to know who that person is. The next category, and probably the broadest, is browsing activity. So this contains things such as clicks, a new page being loaded, a button being clicked on, a menu interacted with, video chat being enabled or disabled, files downloaded, although we do not store the file itself, just record it's being downloaded, and tab switching, much more. For a full list of events, again, you can go to help.surfly.com, and I'll provide a click path towards the end of the video where you can see this page. The important thing to note about all of these events is that they do not all record the same thing. Each event within records slightly different information relevant to that event. No kind of personal information, no personal data is stored in audit logs whatsoever. Surfly keeps them free of PI. The final event I have listed on this page is custom events. So if you find that the events that we have out of the box something is missing, maybe you want to add something else, we have a JavaScript API where you can add your own events to the audit logs. So this really gives you the power to log what you need to log and to have full control over the auditing of your Surfly sessions in this way. So before we finish, I want to just take a look at a couple of events. So I want to look at the session created event, which is always event 0. And then I want to take a look at one of the browsing events, and I'll have a look at the click event and show you what kind of information we have inside these events. So for session created, as I said, this is the first event in each session. And the table here shows what we collect, what information belongs to this event, which you can find in the audit logs when this event is listed. So you can see, for example, we have the session ID, and this will help you identify the session. We have the starting URL, the IP of the user, the method the session was created through. So it could be over the Surfly widget, for example, over the API, outbound, inbound, that information can be found here. And then, of course, we have the session options. I won't expand that in this video because that is a list of all Surfly configs that pertain to this session. So you can know exactly what settings we used in every session you've had. And then finally, we have the server region. So let's take a look at my example. So in the session I just showed you where I browse bowl.com, we can see the event type at the top. We can see the time that this event occurred, and this is in UTC. Next, we have the details where we can find all the information I listed on the previous side. So we have the bowl.com URL, we have the starting point, and we can see that I browsed in the EU and the Netherlands servers. If I expanded options here, as I said, we would see a full list of all configurations at the time of this session for this session. So the next event I want to take a look at is much further down the list. It's a click event. So this is event 686. In the bowl session I showed you, it wasn't a very long session, but we can see we are already at number 686. We can see that we will be collecting the XML path, and this is the information we collect for a click, the XML path, the attributes of the element clicked on, and the node name. And as I said, each event collects different information. So if we take a closer look at the click event for my session, we can see, again, the time in UTC, the session ID and event type. Within details, we can see the attributes of the button I clicked on. You can see here every CSS class the button belonged to has been listed, and the button node name and the path behind the button. Recording attribute details of page elements in this way really opens the door to detailed analysis of browsing behavior and activity within the session without exposing any personal data whatsoever. So thank you. That's Audit Logs. If you have, as I said, if you have questions or would like to know more, please contact sales@surfly.com for information about the audit log events we record, what information is collected for each individual event, for example. Go to help.surfly.com and follow the path I have on screen. If you're curious about adding your own events with our powerful JavaScript API, please go to docs.surfly.com and again, follow the path. Thank you and have a nice day.